I wanted to point out, coming up in about 5 minutes, we're going to be hearing from Mike Gallagher and his daily commentary. Of course, Mike Gallagher replacing Mike Huckabee. There's going to be some more changes in that Republican field for president. We've already had a couple of people drop out who, gosh, they were early favorites. Rick Perry and then Scott Walker. In Perry's case, it was just because they sort of spent all the money right away and they didn't get any traction. And if they'd budgeted it better, he'd still be in the race. There have been rumors swirling around that by next week, Rand Paul is going to be out of the Republican presidential contest. I saw it initially in a newspaper in his home state of Kentucky yesterday, and I posted it to Facebook, and immediately all of the libertarians who, of course, were in love with his dad started saying, oh, this is just the media, you know. No, it's his hometown newspaper, which has been relatively friendly to him. And then today it was announced by the Washington Examiner, not announced, published by the Washington, thinking in radio terms here, published by the Washington Examiner, which is a very conservative publication in Washington. And a lot of the guys who write for National Review are writers at Washington Examiner. National Review, founded by William F. Buckley, if you didn't know, who was at one time probably the most well-known conservative in America back in the day when nobody really knew what a conservative was, other than Buckley showing up on TV every now and then and winning in some sort of debate with some leftist. Today, there's a claim in that story in the Washington Examiner that the major fundraiser for Rand Paul has decided to get out. He said he just can't ask any more of his friends to give money to Paul's campaign. And I've got to tell you, I was among that group. I was giving to Rand Paul's campaign a couple of years ago when some of these political action committees got started and got roaring, and he was the only candidate at the time I'd given money to. Now, on the other hand, I see a couple of other Republicans, I think, pretty good people, and there's always other options. There are always other parties. Now, some of them can't get on the ballot in every state, but I'm telling you this right now. I'm a conservative who happens to vote mostly Republican. Republicans tend to believe that if you're a conservative, that you've got to go along with whoever they give you, whether it be John McCain or Mitt Romney. No, we do not. Paul's problem is he was trailing in the polls. He'd been at one time considered to be the guy at the top of the heap in the Republican Party, about a year and a half ago. He was trailing in the polls, and he started this thing. He was going on TV show after TV show after TV show saying, as soon as the voters learn exactly what Donald Trump's views are on eminent domain, they're not going to like him. Now, Donald Trump, when he was running casinos in Atlantic City, did use eminent domain to help knock down some old derelict neighborhoods so he could expand his casino business. Right? I don't know if it's right. That's a question you can all answer. On the other hand, I've seen a lot of local elections turn on things like eminent domain. But do you go vote for a president on that issue? No, you do not vote for president because he had somebody he worked for, or he himself pressured a local government into giving him some land that belonged to somebody else so he could therefore further his business. I'm just telling you something right now, and that is when you go vote in November of 2016, you're not going to be, using eminent domain as your overriding concern. So as I was hearing Rand Paul, I was thinking, what is the guy doing, for crying out loud? He can't do any better than that. Trump's closest competitor now, not Mike Huckabee, who we mentioned earlier, and that got this whole rift started, but Ben Carson, who appeared last night on Fox News Channel on the Kelley File. That comes on at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, which means, of course, you don't have to stay up late. You can watch it at 7 o'clock our time. And Carson was talking a little bit about the problems he's having with certain people, in some community that are trying to migrate here.
The latest Wall Street Journal NBC News poll shows you now in a virtual dead heat with Donald Trump for front-runner status. He's at 21%. You are at 20%. First, let me ask you, as some journalists had proposed last week, do you believe that Donald Trump has peaked?
I suspect that he's probably getting close, but who knows? I mean, we're in uncharted territory. We've never had anything like this with all these insurgents, outsiders doing so well, because it resonates with the people. And it really kind of depends on whether he continues to put material out that people resonate with, and doesn't, become too thin-skinned and start attacking people over everything.
Why do you think you've gone up as you have?
I've gone up a lot because I've been out there talking, and people have an opportunity to actually hear what I'm saying. And also because I think the American people have caught on to the media and recognize that these guys have their own agenda.
They do, and we've talked about that often on this program. You have them trying to tell him he needs to get out of the race because he said he would not support a Muslim for president. My guess is about 88% of the American public would probably say the same thing. He didn't say he would bar someone from holding office because of a religious litmus test. He just said he wouldn't do it. A day later, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, which is a front for raising money for Hezbollah and some of the other terrorist organizations in the Middle East, the leader of that group came out and said that Carson needed to get out of the race because he's a bigot and mean and rotten and no good. And guess what? According to Megyn Kelly, that violated federal law because Council of American-Islamic Relations, get this, it's a 501c3. I think I read that correctly. Anyway, whatever it's designated as, they cannot engage in that sort of political backstabbing. Here you go. 501c3 states that such organizations, quote, are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office, unquote. Let's put the Council of American-Islamic Relations out of business. That's all we have to do. We get rid of those people. They've already violated, apparently, their charter and their agreement with the government. Close the shop down. Oh, you're telling me that Barack Hussein Obama won't do that? Somewhere, somehow, we can bring suit, and we can have that done. And we can bring an end to that front group, which is a media darling, I should point out, in this country. Somebody in media the other day tried to compare it to the, Jewish or Anti-Defamation League, which is a Jewish organization. Give me a break, folks. Nobody believes that, how shall we put it? Malarkey. There you go. There's the word I'm looking for. We have Mike Gallagher coming up in just a few seconds. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Gallagher brought to you exclusively by the financial advisors at Waddell & Reed in Twin Falls. The telephone number is 736-6563.